With a visualizer, you can simulate the environment that you're designing for. You can also maneuver in 3D space to see your show from all angles. In the 3D viewer, if you left-click anywhere in the 3D view window and move the mouse without letting go of the button, you'll have control over the perspective. This makes it very powerful because you can see your design from any angle. You can also zoom in with the scroll button on a mouse. Now, because we're still using the demo light show, the space is already set up with lights, props, and figures. If you want to create an environment from nothing, you can use the default light show, which is empty and waiting to be set up. We'll stick with the demo for our purposes, but let's look at ways to customize the space. Just like with most windows in ShowXpress, if you right-click on the 3D view window, you get our menu options. And we'll start with stage setting. This controls the dimensions of the stage, the brightness of the ambient light in the room, and you can put textures on all walls in the space. ShowXpress provides several default options, but if you have a picture of a wall or a curtain that you wanted to use of your own, you can have a custom texture. Simply choose custom texture and find your picture. Next, we have object settings. This is essentially everything that's in the space, like musical instruments, figures, props, the fixtures themselves, speakers, the stage, truss, etc. Over here, you can see that there's a bank of objects. These are the objects that we can choose from to add to the space. Over here on the right, we have all of the objects that are currently in the space. In order to delete one of these, all you have to do is highlight it by clicking on it, and then just click on delete. If you wanted to add something, find what it is you'd like to add. Why don't we add another speaker? And click on this icon to move it over into the stage space. And there it is. Once something's added into the space, you have control over position, orientation, scale, and color. Position is important. It's important to know that you've got X, Y, and Z coordinates to work with. If you're facing the stage, X is left and right, Y is up and down, and Z is downstage or upstage. When you're working with this, remember that you can move this space in any direction, and if you're facing the wrong direction, so to speak, it may be confusing because no matter where the location of this space is in the 3D environment, it's still going to be as if you were facing forward. So in other words, even if we were looking at this backwards, X is left and right as if we were facing from the front. Just something to keep in mind. We'll bring our speaker down to the ground, and let's say we're happy with it right there. We'll leave it. Orientation, you can make changes to the way that the object sits in the space. Scale, you can change the size in various ways, change the scale. And in color, you can either do a red, green, blue mix, or you can choose from the palette here. Let's delete this strange speaker from our space. We also have fixture settings. This determines how the fixtures look in the space. You can see that we have a cue spot that we added in the setup video. It's put arbitrarily in the space, and we have to move it to where we want it to go. So we would just click on it, and just like with the objects, it's the same parameters to deal with. With position, you can move it up and down, wherever you want it to go. We'll bring it down closer to our rigging. And of course, you can change orientation, scale, and color, just as you can with any other object in this area. 3D settings mostly can be left alone. 3D rendering, frames per second. If you know about this sort of settings, feel free to play with it, but it's not necessary. The only thing I check is to make sure that beam resolution is high and that we have realistic beams, of course, and you might change the length of the beam depending on how you want to design your light show. And you can print if you wanted to print an image of your design. And you can also export an image so that you can bring it into the editor for when you're programming and customize that environment when you're developing your light show. So in order to really see how the 3D viewer works, we'll need to program some lights. We're going to do that in our next video on using the editor.